Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Today we are talking about the 3 most common breakfast mistakes, and this was inspired by a post that was put out in the Healthy Lifestyle Support Group on Facebook. If you're not part of that support group, make sure you go to the link in the show notes to join. The post was just basically like, put your go-to breakfast, and there were some really great options, balanced options that I saw, but then there were some things that really, my red flags went up. I was like, I hate to just make assumptions because I always like to be able to speak with an individual before I can really kind of give feedback on what they're currently eating. But I think that it's safe to say that there are some common breakfast mistakes that I see a lot of people make, and I think it's important to talk about them today. So the very first breakfast mistake, I'm just going to explain like what breakfast is. So before I get into the common mistakes, to be clear, a breakfast is clearly just breaking the fast. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a full meal. It also doesn't necessarily need to be in the morning. It truly is what works for you, your schedule, your digestion, and all of those things. From my personal experience and also working with thousands of clients over the year, especially women who struggle with emotional eating and binge eating and excessive snacking in the evenings, myself and my other fellow dietitians, we found that our clients do benefit by having a balanced breakfast within 2 to 3 hours of waking. Now that could be completely different for you and your lifestyle, but to mitigate the overeating, the over snacking, the excessive cravings, we do find that to be super helpful. So just to be clear, your breakfast doesn't necessarily need to look like what I'm about to describe, but I think it would be really helpful if you just gave it a try. Okay, so first common breakfast mistake is that it gets skipped. And when it gets skipped, it can lead to what I just described before, a lot of overeating, a lot of excessive cravings, low energy, hangriness, really just making it very hard to even balance your blood sugars throughout the day. Also a missed opportunity to consume nutrients, right? Your body needs certain nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients, and we can get them through our food. But if we're skipping an entire meal, well, then we are less likely to be able to reach our macronutrient or micronutrient goals. Okay, so that's super important. So try not to skip breakfast, even if you're not hungry first thing in the morning. I hear that a lot. That just means maybe push when you have your breakfast back, or maybe give it a try that maybe you're not hungry first thing in the morning because 1, you overate the night before, or 2, maybe you need to go for like a little bit of a walk, get some movement in to get your metabolism kind of stimulated and ready for yourself to eat something and be hungry for it. Okay, so common breakfast mistake number 1, it gets skipped. And to add to that, actually, before I keep going, there was one comment in the Facebook group that coffee was her breakfast. Coffee is not a meal. Coffee is not food. Coffee is not breakfast. Even if you put, milk in your coffee and sugar in your coffee, it is not breakfast. Okay, so let's get clear that coffee does not count as a meal and coffee does not count as breakfast. All right, so hopefully I help you to realize that all coffee really does is it has caffeine, and what it does is it actually makes you feel like you're not hungry. So another thing that if you're feeling like you're not hungry for breakfast, it could be maybe you're having too much caffeine and need to cut back a bit because it definitely shuts off your hunger cues. And we want to be hungry, right? Because if you're trying to get in touch with your hunger cues, if you're trying to honor when you're hungry, stop when you're full, well, we need to be able to identify what's true hunger and what's just maybe you're stressed out, anxious, busy, or not feeling hungry because you had something like caffeine, which shuts down your body's ability to recognize hunger. Okay? Not a tactic we recommend. All right. Common breakfast mistake number 2, that it's not large enough. Or it's like super small. So a lot of people say like, I have a banana for breakfast. A banana is great, but a banana is a snack. A banana is not a meal. right? Maybe it's a yogurt. Yogurt, yes, it has carbohydrates, protein, and fats, depending if it's fat-free or full fat. So it technically has all the nutrients you need, but they're usually like, a cup of yogurt, maybe 80 calories, 110 calories, maybe max 150 calories, not a substantial amount of food. And so that also can lead to the overeating later in the day, or like I said before, just a missed opportunity to get in more nutrients. So if it's not large enough, then you end up getting hungry, earlier on. And then by the time you actually get a chance to eat, you're starving, you're ravenous. So making sure that it's large enough will be really helpful in the consistency and sustainability of your plan. Now, if you're someone who normally doesn't eat breakfast, and maybe you're starting with maybe just getting your body used to eating something first thing in the morning, then it's okay if you do break the fast with something like a banana or a yogurt and it's not that large. So once again, guys, if you've heard me before, it's all about individualized care. So make sure you're finding yourself in the story. But I would encourage you to try what I'm about to share, which is the third common breakfast mistake, which is usually it's not balanced enough, or not, or maybe it's too high in sugar or low in fiber or doesn't have enough protein. And so the main thing that I hope you take away from this is that whenever you decide to have your first meal of the day, just like all the other meals of your day, I would really love it if it was something that was nutrient dense and balanced and big enough, meaning it had a complex carbohydrate, a healthy fat, a lean protein, and then a fruit or a vegetable. Protein first thing in the morning is really, really important, but also high in fiber foods, making sure you're helping you with your regulating your bowel movements, and just overall satiety and fullness in the long run. So a lot of people might start their day with something sweet, which there's nothing wrong with if you wanted to have a muffin or a cookie or a donut. But it's in making sure that then if you are going to choose something like that, even though it might be high in sugar and low in nutrients, maybe pair it with a protein shake or pair it with your eggs in the morning. Put it with your meal rather in place of a meal. Okay, I think a lot of people fixate more so on calories. What I really want you to start focusing on is more on nutrients and really focusing on how do you want to feel now, but also how do you want to feel later. So it's totally fine, and we would love for you to start enjoying your food and eating for flavor, but we don't want to enjoy your food and eat for flavor in sacrifice of nutrition and fueling your body, right? So to make your meal more balanced, I kind of thought what might be helpful was actually in the Facebook group, we had some really great comments of some people's go-to breakfast, and we have some that are really well balanced, and then some might need a little bit of small improvements. So let's say some really balanced ones. So someone had typically oats or buckwheat cereal with egg whites cooked in, so it's fluffy, and hemp seeds nut butter on top. Sometimes they'll do a yogurt bowl with half a searing of oats, add granola, and a nut butter. So what this one is missing is color. So we need some fruit on there or some vegetables in there. It'd probably be weird to have cereal with vegetables, but maybe adding some blueberries or strawberries on top to give it some color and a little bit more nutrients. But we do have the carbohydrates from the oats, we have the protein from the egg whites, and we have the healthy fat from the hemp seeds or nut butter. So it's very balanced in that way. Someone else said they usually have scrambled eggs or Greek yogurt with fruit. Sometimes they eat both. So we're missing technically, there's carbohydrates, protein, and fat there. You could argue maybe, is she on purpose neglecting the carbohydrates or the starches per se? Could she have a whole grain piece of toast with that for some added fiber? Probably. And someone else says they have egg whites on a carb balanced wrap. I probably would just so the egg whites contain the protein, but we're missing the fat when you just have the egg whites. So you could do a whole egg and some egg whites to increase the protein, keep that fat there. The fat in the egg yolk is nutritious, has, omega-3s, vitamin D, a carb balance wrap. There's the carbohydrates there. It's lower in carbs, which depending on this person's activity level, age, gender, it's totally probably fine. But with that said, she probably could benefit from adding either, cooking with some fat, so using a butter or olive oil with her cooking, with her eggs, adding some veggies in there, and then maybe having some fruit on the side. That would probably work out for her. Someone just said she just eats eggs. We want to balance that out for sure. Toast with almond butter and a boiled egg probably would add some color to that. Maybe a fruit probably would fit best, or even doing toast with hummus, the boiled egg, and like lettuce and tomato. And maybe do egg whites instead of a full egg, since she's doing almond butter. And guys, I'm being really nitpicky, but I just want you to start to kind of identify where the areas of opportunity for those little small shifts in their nutrition. Notice how I'm not telling them to eat something completely different. I'm just paying attention to what they're currently doing and giving them suggestions on how to make it more balanced. Someone else said oatmeal with flax seeds and a banana. So it has the carbohydrates, it has the healthy fat, and it has the fruit, which technically is more carbohydrates, which is completely fine. But what is missing is that protein. So one thing I might suggest to her would be maybe even having a Greek yogurt with it, putting some protein powder in her oatmeal, or having a protein shake on the side, or even just having like a hard-boiled egg. That would work too. So let's see, am I missing anything else? Sauteed spinach with tomatoes, egg whites, sprinkle of tea, dollop of fat-free Greek yogurt, and hot sauce. That sounds delicious. Also, missing something carbohydrate rich, it appears there. So we have the fat, we have the protein, we have the veggies, and also, once again, guys, it really depends on timing of meals. If you're active in the morning and night, these are all things to consider. But let's see, eggs, mushrooms, cheese, spinach, omelet, delish. I think we're just like, once again, there's no shame in having, and this is what's interesting. As I'm reading through these, I'm noticing a lot of people are missing some starch sometimes. It's like either they're having one or the other. So it's either they're having oatmeal, which is high fiber and a great starch, but then they're not having the protein, or if they're having the protein-rich foods, what they're missing is something that's high fiber and starchy. So I think it's important that we think about everything is balanced. So if you want me to take a look at your breakfast, if you're curious if it's balanced enough, feel free to email me, tipswithtony@gmail.com, or send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and I'd be more than happy to take a look. So as a recap, the 3 common breakfast mistakes is either it gets skipped, it's not large enough, or it's not balanced enough. So make sure that when you're building your breakfast, first of all, make space to have it, right? Set some time aside. Maybe you need to wake up 5 minutes earlier. Make sure that it's, slowly start to add to it, so that it's a little bit larger. And then really start to make those small tweaks. Maybe swap out a sugary cereal for a low sugar cereal. Maybe instead of just milk, you put a little protein powder in your milk, shake it up, it'll add a little bit of protein to it. If you don't have any fruits or veggies present for your breakfast, focus on adding fruit or vegetable. If there's no healthy fat there, maybe add some healthy fat. So find a way to balance it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram as well at tips_with_Tony with an I. And if you have any other questions, like I said, I'm here for you. Thank you so much for listening to the Tips with Tony podcast. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.